So it's my pleasure today for the open lectures to introduce Hanaa Malallah and the duo Kennardphillips. So Hanaa Malallah is one of Iraq's most innovative contemporary artists and has been working in exile in the UK since 2007. She studied at the Institute of Fine Arts, Baghdad, where she was awarded a PhD in 2005 and where she continued to teach. She was Fellow of the School of Oriental and African Studies in London from 2007 to 2008. Malallah has exhibited internationally and has works in important collections, including the British Museum. Her recent work is increasingly concerned with the loss of Iraq's heritage through the destruction of its libraries and the looting of the National Museum following the 2003 US-led invasion. Her work engages with the production of national identity, state legitimacy, and imperial power, while continuing to explore the cultures of Mesopotamian civilization, as well as the experience of its destruction and the loss of heritage. Kennardphillips is a collective of two British artists, Peter Kennard and Kat Phillips, and have been working together since 2003. They have exhibited internationally, including in group shows at the Tate, the V&A, the Design Museum, and the Imperial War Museum. So our three artists for this evening are here to talk about their current show at the Mosaic Rooms. They developed the work in that exhibition on the invasion and occupation of Iraq in response to each other's practice. So it's quite an interesting relationship between the two bodies of work here in this exhibition. And I'm quoting from the catalogue by by Alan Ingram, and he claims and says that the work produced for this exhibition raises questions about the claims that the invasion of Iraq brought freedom and a better future for its people. The works in the show seek to engender a visceral response to the violence of war, playing across the boundaries that might conventionally separate art and politics, collapsing one into the other. So it's my very great pleasure to introduce our artists. After they've given their presentation, we'll take a question and answer session from the audience, and please wait for the roving mic. Okay, thanks very much. I can speak into that.
I have to?
I think so. Oh, sorry. I've got mine on.
I need to speak?
Possibly, let's...
Oh.
Oh, you can use it, okay.
Thanks for your coming. Thanks for Chelsea College of Art and especially Throp for her support and give me this opportunity to speak about my experience as an Iraqi artist. First of all, I just would like to point out that I am not a political artist. I'm just political because that's due to my identity as an Iraqi. I have lived under conflicts for 35 years. So I have saturated by destruction and ruination of wars. I have left Iraq in November 2006. So all my practice over 35 years has emerged in which my education, my art practice have intertwined with the Iran-Iraq war, first Gulf War, and then a long period of sanction, 12 years, and then invasion of Iraq and occupation. So on top of all of that, I am now in exile. So, and I am struggling to get my paper to settle down here. So from this situation, there is political issue in my artwork. Briefly, I am political artist by destiny. And the other things I would like to point it out, I'm accidentally survived. Iraqi artist accidentally survived from the war and from 4 wars. as opposed this with the Kennardphillips, who they are political by their choice. So it is not my choice to be political artist. So this is just so it is just due to my situation in Iraq. Let me give you a rough outline about my experience with war and how it's that affect my artwork and my life. So shortly after Iran-Iraq war, which was stopped in 1988, after that, shortly the Desert Storm was started in 1991. And deeply believe, that is personally believe, this point, this year, 1991, was the turning point in all history of Iraq. Because it is all Iraqi life and culture was profoundly changed. And from this year as well, all my life and my artwork was changed. And for me, in this year, 1991, I never forget this night, 16th to 17th January. Because in this night, when the Desert Storm started, and just after 2 days, all the city, which it is all my history with it, Baghdad city, because I was in Baghdad in this night, collapsed in 2 days. And after 1 week, it is when I went out, there is no city at all. So everything is collapsed in just 1 week. So this is the image about Baghdad. I would like to point I would like to point something here. I didn't see any image about this all war until I left Iraq in November 2006, because we were completely isolated. So until I came here, I saw not now, just 5 years ago, I just, through the images, I saw the war. So this is about Baghdad in 2003. And this is Al Sarrafiyah Bridge, which was built by Britain in 1950, I think before 1950. And this is, there is 20 bridge in Baghdad, all in just in 1 week like this. And it is, I live here because it is this river divided Baghdad in two parts, like here, London. So I live here in this part, and my work here in the other part. And this bridge stay like this for 6 months until the government built the temporary bridge. So, and then after 1 year, they built it all. They rebuilt this. And this is affect all my view and all my visual thing about my artwork. This is Al Amariya shelter, which is very modern shelter, and it was bombed by USA. And because it is very modern, and it is civil shelter, it is very modern. The USA had created a specific missile just for this shelter. And this shelter, because it is built in very modern way, and Japanese company built it, it is automatically, the door, it is automatically shut when something blew inside the shelter. And in this night, there is 400 people, almost of them women and children, inside the shelter. And all this, because the door is automatically shut, all the people here died in this shelter. And I visited this shelter after 1 year. And when I visited, there is some smoke and some smell of some human meat there, and a lot of remain of body in the wall. And I think the new government and the Saddam regime keep this shelter as a memorial for many generations. And the new government, the first thing it removed this shelter now. So there is no Al Amariya shelter or memorial of Al Amariya shelter in Baghdad. I put this image because I choose this image because when you see this image, maybe you think it is image about firework. And I just choose it because just to make to say how it is different, to taste the war physically and to taste the war through the media, through the television or the newspaper or internet. And if you see this image, maybe you think it is firework. So if it's like this, so it is nothing. How I compare my experience in this night, 16th to 17th, with this image. So from anyone see this image, so it is like firework. But what's happened is really different. So to test war physically, it's completely different. And this is the point of our exhibition now in Qattan Foundation in Mosaic's room. It is to say it is really different to test the war physically and to test it secondhand by media. And this is the difference between Kennardphillips, the British artist who saw the war through the media, and me who test the war physically. And I will give you example how that affect our technique and our concept in art. This is Kennardphillips' work, which is really, I like it, and this is great work. And this is a good example to show you the differences between my technique and his technique. This is artwork. It is composed from many layers of a newspaper. So it is the technique. It is about just from a newspaper, from the media. And he put, and the subject of this work, he chose a media podium and put the podium in the central of work. So it is all in all, it is about media. So if you can see this detail, so this is a lot of images from a newspaper. So it's from media. So all his concept, all his technique come from the media. If it's compare that with this is my artwork, which is all the technique of this work come from fire, exists by fire. So it is many layers of clothes, burnt clothes, and ashes, and all even the color, include the color. It is from the fire. So, and this is the detail of the work. So no colors, it's just all the thing. It is from fire. So Kennardphillips' war memory is built by the media, and my war memory is built by fire and ruins. And so this is what I would like to point out. So to physically test war, it is different and give me some concept. So, and I would like to point that by living war, one learned the lesson that the ruination and are at the essence of all being, including all man-made. And this is affect me all my my concept about my city. So when I came here, the first thing I did the first artwork I did here. It is map. It is a map about Baghdad. This is images about the troops, and this is about the city. This is my artwork, and this is the map. So this is the first artwork I did in here in London, and it is Baghdad city map. So it is fake map. There is no cities. So I don't trust in anything solid after the war, even the city, even the map. So I did this map about city, and I call it Baghdad city map. And you can see there the number 1011. It is about the because in Islamic chart there is a equal letter equal one number. So it is Baghdad equal 1011. You can see here it is two. That this is all the number of Baghdad. And I did second map, but there is something by Alan. He write about the map. He said, as map or maps, like grids are marked by military symbols and typography and allusion to sectarian division, are torn, scorched, and blurred, evoking the chaotic, violent geography of post-invasion Baghdad. And this is the other map. I did it, it is about my country. And it is as well, it is fake map. And all the name of cities here, I wrote it by fire. And all thing here by fire, but there is some color. There's a real map here. And this is all, as I said, all the cities named by fire. Just this city, it is a real parcel from this religious city in Najaf. And I put some sectarian here. It's green, but it is work with the other thing, which is about a green zone, red zone. And this is, I put red here because there is something here, a sectarian thing about in western of Iraq. So for me, the maps, these two maps, were influenced visually by my concept about Iraq or Mesopotamia, which I would like to say it, call it Mesopotamia as utopia of ruination through all its or my history. I mean, all my life there. I just, so war after war. So there's just destruction with the Mesopotamia. And this led me, this is my artwork. This led me to, this is affect my, all my concept about my artwork and lead me in something not politic, completely in other side, it is not, in the other side of politics, it's just artistic thing. And I built my concept about abstract and figurative. And if you see this artwork, which is now in Mosaic room in Qattan Foundation, you can see it as a landscape. Or a heap of something, and it is like or like landscape, or sometimes you can see it as abstract thing. But if you see, there's abstract layer here, and there's other layer about figurative. So you can see this. So this is details from the work here. This one. In this side. So this is, you can see in one layer, you can see this is head as a figurative, as head and eye. You can see it in one layer, this is figurative, and in the other layer, you can see it as abstract. So I have something here, I would like to read it about my concept, how it's work between figurative and abstract. Another lesson provided for free is that death has no meaning, and nothing solid can be reduced to nothing in seconds. Ruination and destruction are hidden de facto in figurative phenomenon. This leads me to the concept of existing and vanishing, which to me is a spiritual concept, as well as daily reality. This war situation, learning of the process of vanishing from figurative to abstract, matter to dust, something to nothing, morphed from recognition to form, and have started operating the sensitive edge, liminal space, between figurative and abstract. So you can see this, and this one. So this is, you can see this is one layer is like abstract, and the other layer you can see the face or the remain of body here. So it is, this is, I think this concept is direct come from my experience with war. This is the detail of the work. And this is, and from this experience with my artwork and with my experience with the ruin, led me to build my term about my artwork and about artwork with my generation. So, and I call it ruins technique. And there is, I would like to give you some just outline about ruin technique, what's mean to me. And how I built this term. This is the museum of Iraq after 2003, and I will write a small paragraph about this ruins technique term, because it is related to this museum. After the first Gulf War and during the sanction period, the Iraqi artists of 80's generation, I being one of them, were concerned with their ancient heritage. This was triggered by an acute awareness of the need to discover an individual identity in the aftermath of the wars and sanctions, and a ban on travel for any reason. A vital focal point of our 80th generation was the Archaeological Museum. This contained important artifacts from 6,000 years of Mesopotamia history. One can say that Iraqi artists have viewed this artifacts as modern artwork, and have taken this material sensibility of the ruins as aesthetic in their or in my technique. In 1991, during the Gulf War, this museum was closed out of fear of further US airstrikes, and it was not reopened until 28 April 2000, and was looted and destroyed in 2003 during the US occupation. After that, one may view the museum as a composite or assemblage of ruins, historical artifacts, and destruction of war and looting. One must remember that the area surrounding the museum was extensively bombed and destroyed. So wherever Iraqis turned to look, whether in the museum or outside, there was remain of ruins. And I will explain that through the images. So this is the museum. This is the entrance, the main entrance of Archaeological Museum in Baghdad after 2003. And this is the hall here, which is done by U.S. troop, by Mosaic. And there is the tank of U.S. troop there in the entrance. And this is the library. And this is the Islamic department after 2003 in the museum. And this is the inside the museum, so you can see the artifacts and the ruin of the of war. So it is like assemblage of ruins, of artifacts and ruins. And this is outside the museum. And this is the image of Paul Bremer, who governed Iraq, an American diplomat, who governed Iraq after U.S. invasion. And you can see him here with this Namrud treasure, which is found in the bank in Baghdad. In the central bank of Baghdad, in the basement of bank, and they take American troops take this treasure, Namrud treasure, which is many parts of gold. This is just one part of it, and exhibited in Iraq Archaeological Museum for 2 days, and then it transferred all the part of this golden treasure, Namrud treasure, to New York to exhibit it there. And from this time to date, the treasure stay in USA. And the government, or the Iraqi, there is no government, just asked to return this treasure to Iraq. And there is a story, and still the treasure in USA. And there is a story say they will do copy, USA will do copy about this and send the copy to Iraq and keep the original one there. So this is Paul Bremer with the treasure, and this is just one part of the golden. This big artifacts, golden one, and this is Paul Bremer with the one artifact, and this is inside the museum. I used when I was in Baghdad. I used to visit the museum, Archaeological Museum of Baghdad weekly. because sanction and a ban of travel outside Iraq. So just this archaeological museum important in Baghdad, because no other museum. And when it is looted and destroyed, so it's, for me it is a big thing. And I did just after Desert Storm stopped, I did my first solo exhibition in Baghdad, and I call it the documentation of visits to National Museum. And just I would like to point that on first arriving in London on 27 January 2007, before anything, including presenting my paper to stay here, I asked for a British Museum location, and I went for a visit. And this is as well, there's many, this is like 12 sculpture. It's from Archaeological Museum, and this used to exhibit it together. And 6 of them was destroyed, and some of them looted. And really, before I have like a story with them, because I used to see this in the cabinet in the museum. And I did artwork now in the museum, in the mosaic room, about this sculpture. So this is the cabinet of museum, this one. And I call it Mesopotamia rhythm. And this is, if you compare this with this, so it is in like the same composition, but this one with the burned cylinder. And I put metronome here in the middle, and I put the metronome in the grave level, so taking in the very slow movement. And I put it in the grave or grave, and I work with this word, grave or grave, because in Arabic it is mean two meaning. It means sad or tomb. I think the same with the English. So it is mean hazin or qabr in Arabic. So, and I work with it, and this is with the sound of from metronome. This is detail from the cabinet, Mesopotamia rhythm, and this is close detail. And this is as well the detail from the cabinet, and this is bag of Iraqi rice, real one. And this word here, it is the word say nafis in Arabic, which is precious or priceless, and put just ash in the bag. So this is the cabinet in all. So this is the all thing in cabinet, and this is ash and my shoes. Mesopotamia rhythm. So this is about the museum, archaeological museum in Baghdad, and just would like to say how that all thing affect my technique and my artwork. The other issue, it is about car, because maybe you know, it is the daily thing in Iraq until now. There is exploded car every day. And this is now Iraqis use it as like a daily reality. So when I came here, one curator from Gimak Museum in Holland came to my studio, and he said he transferred 2 cars from Al-Mutanabbi Street to Holland, exploded car, and he would like to exhibit it as artwork. I will go. This is Al-Mutanabbi Street in Iraq, which is very famous, which is like Fleet Street here. It is just for selling and buying book. And I have very big memory with this street, because during the sanction, we can buy art supplies from this street, and the Iraqi used to buy a very old book and a second-hand book and very new book from this street. So this is, you can buy a real manuscript from this street, and very new. And this street before 5 March 2007. Just look, this is the street. How it is there's a big crowd on it every day like this, and this is the street after 5 March 2007. And you can see here I put some jewelry here. You can see this, and I will give you the story of this jewelry. Just see this street, and this is 2 cars exploded in this street. This is the 2 cars which exhibited in Gimak Museum, and the other car, if you maybe you know, with the Jeremy Diller in Hayward Gallery. And the story of this car, it is this two car, Robert Cleaver, take it to Holland to exhibit it in our exhibition, the first exhibition with the Kennard Phillips, with me. This is the first one. And he asked me to exhibit it with this my book art. This is the car. He asked me, this is the car in Holland. This is the car, he transferred the car to Erbil, to north of Iraq, and then it transferred to Holland. And this is the car in Holland. And this is the car. It is transferred from Baghdad to Erbil, to north of Iraq, and then to Holland by Al Al Cargo, which is an Israeli company. So, and this is the detail of the car. And this is the car, the first car, with my map in Gimak Museum in Holland. And this is the first car. And then I asked him, and this is the second car, which I asked him to transfer in 2000, in the end of 2008, 2009, to a station museum in Houston, in America. And he exhibited this car with my artwork as a part of, as an installation. And when I asked him, he said it is very expensive to him to re-ship this car to Holland. So he donated this car to a new museum in New York in 2009. And after that, Jeremy Diller went to the museum and he saw the car and he would like to buy it or to take this car in tour and transfer this car to London and put this car for a while in the Imperial Museum. And then he put this car here in Hayward Gallery. Maybe you know about this, exhibition because it's just finished in the 12th of this month. This is the second car. The first car, this one, when I asked Robert Cleaver about it, he said, one jewellerist buy this car and divide it and make jewelry from it. So I just ask, who can put this jewelry with the blood in his neck or in his ring? This is the car from excluded car from very crowded street in Iraq, and who can put jewelry from this? And I wrote something about that because I think it's I don't know if it's wrong or not, but it is Western policy seems to wish ruin as our specific identity. So it is through this enforced identity that we or I must find our cultural resistance, and thus recycling ruin as artistic technique is a solution given this situation. It is well known that technical aspects of my practice include the burning, distressing, and obliterating of material. I have termed this ruin techniques. So it's now I think, or hopefully it is just clear about my termed ruins technique with my artwork. And this, I just would like to make a comparison about this. So you know this, I explain about this. It is a Namrud treasure, which is a gold one. And this is also the jewelry from the car. And I think it's Iraq for sale. And I just think USA does benefit from everything in Iraq. Everything in very greedy and brutal way. This is ashes of my artwork. This is the troops. This is many Iraqis treated with some American troops. So it is like this is the democracy of them, and this is the site of the city. It is like this is what I saw. It is this is everyday site in Iraq. When you go outside, it's like this. So I have I have the other thing in my exhibition. I exhibited something, some artwork about shoes. And many viewer ask about shoes and what its meaning. Maybe you know about the Iraqi journalist who threw the Bush, the former president of USA, by shoes. And if you would like, I will show you the film, or if you would like to see it, and how that affects my artwork. So just the film, yeah. Before that. Just when he say, yeah, he will say.
Yeah. So what if the guy threw a shoe at me?
Yeah, that's it.
No, I consider it an important step on the road toward an Iraq that can sustain itself, govern itself, and defend itself. But let me talk about the guy throwing the shoe.
So, you'd like to? That's it. You'd like to continue that thing? Okay.
It is one way to gain attention. It's like going to a political rally and having people yell at you. It's like driving down the street and have people not gesturing with all 5 fingers. It's a way for people to draw, attention. I don't know what the guy's cause is, but one thing is for certain: he caused you to ask me a question about it. I didn't feel the least bit threatened by it. These journalists here were very apologetic. They were said this doesn't represent the Iraqi people, but that's what happens in free societies, where people try to draw attention to themselves. And so I guess he was affected because he caused you to say something about it. Now, in terms of the agreements, this is a major achievement. Is it the end? Absolutely not. There's more work to be done. And all this basically says is we made good progress, and we'll continue to work together to achieve.
If you saw the film, the first shoe, the second shoes, it just catch the flag. Yeah. Yeah. So just the second, yeah. Just see the second shoes. It's catch the American flag. So, yeah. So it is just catch the flag. Yeah. Yeah, in this shoot, this one. No, the other one. Yeah, this one. Yeah, so and I exhibited the shoes, and because this is the shoes, this is a photograph of the shoes. And I titled it IWMD, which is Iraqis Weapons of Mass Destruction. If you, maybe you know, the invasion was aimed at rooting out Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, but USA inspectors eventually conceded that he did not have any. So they said there is weapons of the mass destruction in Iraq. And ironic, and I put my shoes, which is connect between the event shoes, accident of shoes, and what the reason why USA invaded Iraq. And I did this heritage flag. This is I call it USA heritage flag. This is the red color. It is very dark, and this is it is heritage flag. It is old flag of America, where they use it in very special ceremony. So it is not the modern flag. Maybe you know the modern flag, the red is a little bit bright than this. And I put my shoes here. And this is the front of flag. This is the back of it. And this is in the exhibition. And this is from the street. This is from Iraq, images about Iraq. And there's something as well in the exhibition. It is maybe you know about this symbol. It is symbol about dove with the olive branch in the beak. And this is maybe you know was used early in Christian. So it is this is a symbol start in religious text. And then after that, use it as a secular symbol, and it is widely used by Picasso. After 1949, in his work as a symbol of peace, and it's now used widely about that. And I put other bird in my exhibition, and I use it widely in my artwork. And this. Maybe you know this bird, or maybe not. This is the hoopoe bird, and it is this bird appear in a Quran text, which is religious text, and appear in Quran. This hoopoe said to Solomon, "I learned to Prophet Solomon, I have learned something you did not know. I come to you from Saba with the firm news." So if Picasso used the dove with the olive branch as a symbol of peace, I use this as a messenger who who's seeking for to survive. And so if the dove, messenger of peace, the hoopoe, messenger of destruction, seeking space to survive. And that's why I put it here with this image from Baghdad. And this, sorry. And this is the hoopoe with the instead olive branch in his beak. I put some destruction here. So and his last sentences, I have learned something you did not know, and that's it.
Next one of us uses that one. Yeah.
Me? It's very easy. So thank you, Hanaa. Amazing presentation, hard to follow. Peter and I we got randomly introduced to each other at the end of 2002. And at that time I was working as a printer for photographers, doing exhibition prints. So I was very familiar with digital printing technology. And you have a long history in photo montage and political artwork, and both of us have been going on the demonstrations leading up in end of 2002, leading up to the what was then an inevitable invasion of Iraq. And I think this is work that we started making around that time. And it very much is exploring digital possibilities in a way that I hadn't been working with digital technology, in a way that Peter suddenly had access to digital technology for the first time, really.
Yeah, so we started working, I suppose, symbolically. I mean, and I think we'll see how different. When Hanaa talked about the differences, and of course the differences are enormous. Hannah's lived through, her life has been through the wars in Iraq. Ours are over here responding to what's going on in the world through media, and also responding, like Kat said, through the fact that millions of people demonstrated all over the world against going to war in Iraq, and of course, we won't listen to it. Millions of people marched all over the world. So making work together was our way of continuing a protest and a feeling of horror of what was going on, of what we were seeing every day on the TV and in the newspapers.
But we put the work in this slideshow in chronological order, so it changes and develops a lot. So this is from a series that we called Award, and it was born out of a series of paintings that Peter started working on after I was pushing him to explore an idea that he'd mentioned when we've been talking. And this was sort of my first work with an artist. So I was kind of like a sort of a catalyst or a force to change, and we started to explore digital technology through it. But the idea was based around the medal, which you should talk about, because it was...
Well, I mean, the idea was to use the medal. We bought the American flag and the Union Jack, and then tore them up, and then put them straight onto a flatbed scanner, and then started working on the scanner in a way that you're not meant to do with digital technology, which is throw dust over it and spit on it and put blood on it and oil, and mess up the sort of cleanliness of the digital image. And then the bottom part, that's in fact a figure from Iraq from previously.
From 1991.
Yeah, so that was added with Photoshop at the bottom. So it's to try and make a series of prints that had a visceral sort of protest within the image. And we made a series of sort of, I think about 15 prints.
Yeah.
That combined, that's one of the helicopters that was bombing in Iraq, and just put them onto flags. So, and here the flag is sort of pushing down through the dust, and then the sand symbolises the desert. So it's all the time we're trying to respond, I think, emotionally, trying to make an emotional image that people can respond to in terms of their own feelings about what was going on.
Yeah, and this is also, it's very much like working with destroying this was the first one, and it was very much working with destroying the flag, the Union Jack, because we saw that the imminent invasion was, a further destruction of honor, in foreign policy, but also it wasn't something that had any sort of economic viability, in any legitimate terms. So it was as much about the destruction of UK or certain principles within civil society here as it was about destruction of another country. And we've sort of, put this into different strategies, because that first set of work ended up as a set of fine art prints, which were all framed and shown in the gallery. And I was certainly very disturbed, because the actual process of making it was very dirty, and it felt very involved with destructive force, I suppose. But actually the final result was incredibly clean in a gallery space, which it felt so remote from the reality of the images that we've been examining, from which to draw our inspiration or our knowledge or motivation. And so we started to make something that would take us back into the street as well, because it was a very quiet scene, the gallery, from my experience, after having been on demonstrations and been involved in demonstrating, organising. So we started to make photo montage posters, which obviously takes you back out into the street, and this is where one of them ended up when we went out to Bethlehem. But the place that we really developed a whole series of posters was at East International by invitation by Gustav Metzger, from Gustav Metzger, when he was building East International. His commission was, or his invitation for proposals was based around trying to mediate, all the artwork should be mediated via web or internet or television or radio. And we had made a proposal for a website which would be an interchange of activist materials, which they didn't have the technical capacity to realize. But what we did instead was build our studio in Norwich for about 7 weeks in 2005, and we worked there, and we had all the facilities there. I mean, all of our equipment we took there, and all of our source material. And the idea was that we would work there, and it was also completely open for other people to come and use all the equipment as well, and that there should be some exchange.
Yeah, so the idea was that it was a productive space. It was a sort of hybrid space between being a studio, a meeting space. We had sort of chairs with books, and a space where people could actually work on computers and make their own images, which we printed out. We had a big Hewlett-Packard printer that was paid for by Hewlett-Packard, thinking that they might get a bit of publicity for a sponsored printer, because when they saw what we were doing, we didn't actually see them again. But we had got the printer up there, and we had ink, so we could produce posters. Like we'd leave it on overnight, like in this image, and leave it on producing Stop. We did a series of posters called Stop, which were protesting about the war, and we printed it on newsprint, which we get free from the end of rolls at a newspaper printer, and then people would come in and take the posters and take them around and put them up, and the word went out around Norwich, around that whole area. There's a lot of peace groups and a lot of campaigning, so people came in and took the posters. So in the sense that the space, even though it was a sort of gallery space, became a space of production rather than consumption. And that image there, I suppose, you know, a lot of the things we've done have been the classic idea of montage, where you bring the things together that are separate visually in our culture, but in fact are in reality together. You know, this is Bush and Blair going into number 10. This is photographed by a squaddie, British squaddie, that he took and put on the internet. So we've just brought the two together into the same space. And you bring two images together, and then you create another meaning to it. You create a meaning about disruption, about what's actually happening, hopefully.
And then hopefully the image, I mean, also the photo montage, especially in digital form, it's ready to be reproduced, whether on posters or in magazines or in newspapers. So it's ready to be disseminated widely. It's a ready-to-go form. But if you don't have a distribution network, then it's very hard to get it out there. I mean, the internet has expanded exponentially since 2005 in terms of social networking, which didn't exist then. But at that time, while we were in Norwich, we also realized through all the peace groups that we were meeting as well that there's a very large air base just in neighbouring Suffolk. Suffolk, is that right? Norfolk? Yeah, Suffolk. Yeah. Lakenheath, which is home to 30,000 US personnel, and it's also where a lot of the fighter airplanes were taking off directly to go to Iraq. So we took the posters out there. There's a film that plays in the exhibition at Mosaic Rooms, which shows what we were doing there.
Yeah, we hung them on the fence, and then the GIs inside contacted the British police, but they couldn't touch us, but they were in the fence, and the police told us not to do it on the fence, because the fence was, they reckoned that was American property as well. So that all you know, enormous swathes of the country have been leased over to the American air bases. And, I mean, it's quite extraordinary. You know, one doesn't realise it, but it happened decades ago that these bases were given over.
Well, half a century ago, yeah.
Yeah, and from here the planes screeched out on their way to Iraq. So in terms of our connection, you know, this is the place where they actually meet. So this is a form of sort of, I suppose, this classic English eccentric protest. You know, the two of us went out there and did it.
In the face of this enormous
Harris
technology. But also, I still can't get over the fact that I'd never heard of Lakenheath, and I had no awareness that there was a 30,000 manned, womaned base that belonged to America on British soil. And it's only one of more than, I don't know how many there are. And this was the best, the most successful montage that came out of that series of stock posters. But like I say, until it was actually picked up by the media, until the media became aware of it, it was kind of, I don't know, I think at that time we weren't sending it out, we weren't sending work out directly to picture desks, or if we were, they were not seeing it or ignoring it. But in 2006, the next year, it got picked up by the graffiti artist Banksy, who had a very huge following by that time. And he wanted to show it in an exhibition that he did at that time regularly every year around Christmas time, called Santa's Ghetto, which is a very popular exhibition shop thing. And he did it on Oxford Street, and he chose to blow up a print of, this is what we call it, photo op. And he blew it up and put it in the window of the shop in Oxford Street, and it got huge public and press attention. And then it's sort of since then gone a bit viral. I mean, these are all publications, print media stuff that we knew that it was happening, but it has since, we've been heard about it many times, been seen in different contexts in the internet. And I think we feel that it holds its own critique. This is Stop the War using it for one of their flyers.
I mean, hopefully it will become an image that Blair will be remembered by. And it was actually bought by the museum, what's it called? The Scottish National Portrait Gallery. I bought it as their official portrait of Blair. They had to have a Blair picture there because he went to Fetties, which is in Scotland, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, they haven't put it up yet, but they bought it. So it's
part of their collection, and it also made its way into the summer show last year or 2 years ago at Tate Britain, Rude Britannia, which was a show about humour and British art.
I mean, because one of the points of this work is it's not just making the work; it's actually disseminating it. It's getting it out to an audience, and through making visual images, hopefully it produces. It's not propaganda. We don't think of it as, when people say this is propaganda, I don't actually think it's not telling you what to do. It's just trying to make an image to encourage people to think critically, and also encourage the idea that people are thinking critically, but this is an image of what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
Because we're bombarded with all that shit media that is telling us all this stuff that doesn't actually connect up with what we're thinking.
Well, it's also making a concise intervention into that media portrayal of a bit of policy or of a person of great might. You know, so it's an intervention. It's trying to make an intervention within the media, using media, and it's using their own tools to subvert whatever the dominant message is at that time. So this is another way that we've been working, which is very much gallery-based, and it's very much not about disseminating images, because this is a large work, and it's about 5 meters wide by about 3 meters high. And it's one that was made in the series that, as well, like President Howe, same method that takeover. Made at the same time as Presidential Seal that Hanaa was showing in her presentation.
Yeah. I mean, I think this connects up a lot with what Hanaa's work in the sense of it's trying to make a destroyed surface that in an inadequate way represents destruction. It's not just a smooth photographic surface, but it's actually physically the thing is very broken up and very fragile. It's on this very fragile paper which is stuck onto newsprint, so the thing is crumbling in itself. So it's not just an image of that destruction, but it is actually physically destroyed in some way, in the process of destruction.
These are the same ones that Hanaa was showing. This still sometimes using montage. I mean, that is our idea for this was that there was no one there. There's no one speaking for the destruction that is being wrought. There's a complete absence of leadership, absence of justifiable policy, or.
And on those ones, it's like papier-mâché in a sense. We used acrylic and water on the surface, and then bashed it with a hammer, with hammers. So the image, at some point, the image sort of breaks up and explodes, and you get fragments of the image coming off all over the place. So again, it's that thing of trying to make an image that simulates in some way the horrors. I mean, well, it doesn't simulate because we're in London being very safe.
Large-scale pieces that are much more distressed and nothing to do with the sort of smooth cleverness of media. That's where that's coming from. This is born. This is again 3 meters by 3 meters, and it is tearing the surface up. So it's a portrait of George Bush printed on top of the Houston Chronicle, on the sheets from the Houston Chronicle, a local paper in Houston, and it was for the Houston Center of Photography. And we then tore through that top image, and behind each tear there's a press image from Iraq that we printed on an Arab language newspaper. There were newspapers that we could get in London. Al-Arab. And it was partly, we wanted to send one of the large-scale pieces that we've been making, but it would have had to been rolled up, and the shipping cost was going to be huge because it's by volume, not weight. And so we had to come up with a method, and this is how this came about, because this packs into just a small briefcase that we could take in hand luggage, because it's just pinned to the wall, each newspaper.
And so you can see behind every tear is Arab paper and then an image. So these are all images. I mean, a lot of these images, we've managed to get access to images from a newspaper. And a lot of these images aren't printed. It's another reason to make images like this. Some of these images do go in the paper and then they've disappeared the next day, or they don't get into the paper because they're too horrific. So in a sense, it's keeping those images in circulation in some way, because the media obviously just want to forget the whole thing. I mean, it's like the Abu Ghraib images of torture. We never see them now in the press. You know, they're in the press, and then there's almost a sort of unspoken ban on them. There's a filtering goes on in all the news channels about what you show and what you don't show. And in a sense, with Iraq, it's now, we don't see any of these images anymore. That's history. Something else is going on. So in a sense, with art, you can keep the thing in circulation in some way.
Yeah, and you can give it a space that allows you to address the sort of psychological impact of what you're looking at, whereas in a daily newspaper, you're flipping past and it's beside an advert and it's beside some quirky story. It's very hard to reach that level of contemplation when you've just been hit psychologically by something with incredible force. And we're always wrestling with being in the gallery or being in the street, being in public view, or being kind of in quite sort of exclusive view in galleries, and so we have managed to make billboards sometimes of the work that's been in the gallery. So the original is this, which again is 7 meters by 3 meters, incredibly fragile piece of work, in the sense that it is made up of papier-mâché newspapers and falling apart, and but giving it some more public presence is always, yeah, something that we seek to do. And this is from a. Do you want to talk about the?
Yeah, we were asked by John Pilger was doing a film about the media and Iraq. What was the film called?
The War You Don't See.
The War You Don't See, which was on ITV about 6 months ago. And he asked us to do images for the film. And so we put together very rough, these were like rough montages that took on questions about the media and the war.
Well, media collusion with government line on war, so how the media connected with government, basically propaganda.
Yeah.
He was accusing the free press of propaganda.
So it's like, yeah, connecting up
They're
these characters into the newsroom.
And they're very much roughs.
And then, you know, showing what the TV shows as against what's going on. So it's that conflict again between what we see and what we, what's actually going on. And in the end, he didn't use them. There was copyright problems with him, but there's also the fact that his films are very direct, sort of talking head films, and most of them didn't work. He used photo op, but he didn't find a way to use the other images, so they just exist as what they are. They're in the Mosaic rooms, the originals of these.
As is everything else,
yeah,
pretty much.
So, I mean, with these ones, it's going into making a very direct photo montage image, just again adding to images of the politicians and the media, adding what's behind it. It's making those connections all the time that we're trying to do with this work. And then, as I say, you make the work and then you've got to get it out into the world. So the two things are interconnected. I think it's a different thing if you're making art like this from being an artist working in their studio, which is where the work develops, and you don't have to show it when you've made it because it's not based on the time you're living in. I mean, the important thing about this work is that we made it while the war was going on, and we didn't stop. We continued, like these are quite recent. So one wants to get it out at that time, and there's a lot of people argue saying, well, you can't make work while it's happening, you know, but
it's very difficult. I think it's incredibly hard because your emotional attachment to what's happening right now is so charged and confusing. I mean, it's a very confusing headspace. But in a way, working with materials as well as directly with images through photo montage helps actually give voice to whatever, you know, the scream or whatever the emotion is. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Hanaa used the Picasso dove. I mean, I don't know if you know that when Colin Powell was giving his speech at the UN with saying that weapons of mass destruction exist, he had all these mad maps and bit files of this and that. He gave the speech. They suddenly realised that he was about to speak in front of a full-size tapestry of Guernica, which is in the UN, and they covered Guernica with a enormous blue curtain for his speech, which is, you know, like shows the part of the image. He's talking about starting a war, and there's an image of war behind him, and there's which is a symbol. That is an anti-war symbol now all over the world. So it was covered with a blanket, and And I think Picasso was always very aware of aware of why he was doing it. In the 40s, a few years after he painted it, a couple of the Gestapo who he was working in Paris came into his studio. I don't know if this is true, but it's a great story. And they saw a photograph of Guernica on the wall, and they said to Picasso, "Did you do that?" And he said, "No, you did." And, that's what it's about.
And that's it.
Okay.